This video is to remind you how to find the average rate of change. We've continued to use the average rate of change in all of our units, but it's good to remind ourselves on what it is and how to find it for each type of function. So remember, another name for average rate of change is slope. And our slope formula is is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So we always have y's over x's. Okay, that's the same thing as saying rise over run. So when we rise, we're rising up our y-axis. Okay, so y's over x's. So there's two ways that we could find the average rate of change. We can use it graphically, or we can find it using an equation. A lot of test questions, assessment questions, are going to use this notation. This is an interval. And it's an interval of x values. Okay? They're always going to be x values. So I always start my ordered pair that way. Okay? So I have these two x values. So the graph is over here to the right, actually. So I'm going to use this graph to find my point. So how I do that, okay, I'm going to go to where x is a -3, and there's a point there. Okay, what is that ordered pair? That's at -3, 0. Okay. Then I'm going to look for where I have an x value of 0. There's that point. Well, what's the ordered pair of that point? It's 0, 3. So once I have an ordered pair, those two ordered pairs, I can use this slope formula. Okay? This is, I go from bottom to top, so this is y2 and y1, x2 and x1. So I'm going to fill in my slope formula here. So my slope is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Now, notice that these subtraction signs, those are already in your slope equation. This is often missed. We subtracted a negative. That's the same thing as adding. Okay? So this is really 3 over 3. My slope between these two values is 1. So my final answer would be 1 here. Okay. Let's look at another equation. Let's erase these points so they don't travel with us. All right, let's look at another example. All right, so here's our graph. We have our interval here. So I have an x value of -5 and an x value of -3. So I'm in search of these y values. So I'm going to go on my graph here, and I'm going to look. I'm going to say, okay, -5. This otherwise here. And so here's the point that's on my graph. Well, what's the ordered pair of that point? That's at -5, 5. Then we have an x value -3. Well, here's the point on the graph. What's the y value of that point? It's at 1. So now that I have those ordered pairs, I can follow the slope formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, remember that subtraction is naturally in the slope formula, so we're subtracting a negative again. So 1 minus 5 all over -3 plus 5, minus a negative is plus. This is -4 over 2. I have a slope of -2. All right, well, what if it wasn't on a graph? What if I didn't give you a graph and I just gave you an equation? So let's focus on that. So looking here, looking here, we have two equations, and I've given you two intervals. These intervals are still x values, so I still have an x value of 1 and 4. So there's a couple things that you can do, okay? The first thing you can do is you could just substitute in 1 and for x. So we would say negative 1 squared plus 4 times 1 minus 3. I get 0. That's one option. You can substitute and get those y values. The other option is we've been practicing graphing. You can make a table of values. So negative x squared plus 4x minus 3. And we can go to second table. And in the table here, we can see that we have 1, 0, and then we have 4, negative 3. Once you have those ordered pairs, again, we're just going back to our slope formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It's going to be negative 3 over 3. My slope is negative 1. Same thing works here. Again, this interval is only x values. So negative 2 and 0. So I'm going to create a table of values. So I'm going to go to table, edit function. Let's see, x squared plus 4x. Got it. I'm going to start at negative 2 because that's what I'm looking for. And so when I have an x value of negative 2, I have a y value of negative 4. And when I have an x value of 0, I have a y value of 0. So now we can do our slope equation. x2 minus x1 all over, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Again, these subtractions are automatically in our slope equation. They never go away. But we have minus negatives here, so those are positives. And I have a slope of 2. And that's a reminder of how to find the average rate of change. Happy studying!